What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review Black Bag, directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Koepp, starring Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. And this review is going to have to be spoiler-free because this is a spy thriller with a lot of twists and turns and double crosses and whatnot. And after watching this movie and enjoying this movie that's so veiled in secrecy and backstabbing and plotting and scheming, I feel like being a little secretive myself just to kind of keep the emotion alive, and the emotion was a very positive one as I walked out of the theater. I know people prefer on this channel to watch my reviews where I just go fucking berserk and have a temper tantrum talking about how much a movie is disappointed me, because I can see the traffic on the videos where I talk shit and I can see the traffic on the videos where I praise something. People prefer the ones where I talk trash, but I regret to inform you I'm going to have to disappoint you on this video because I thoroughly enjoyed Black Bag. I had goosebumps in my forearms as I was walking out of the theater, and I was whistling and clapping, and I could tell this feeling was shared by a lot of people in my audience, because as I was riding the escalator down out of the theater, there were these two young, probably naive kind of knuckleheads behind me who were basically volunteering their ignorance about the career of Steven Soderbergh, a director where I've seen pretty much everything that he's ever made. But they said something really cool, like, man, I've never really seen anything by him before, but I'm going to have to watch more movies by that director. I was like, that's what it's all about. Like, we can get bitter and we can get cynical and we can get depressed about the state of movie culture and the lack of good movies or good directors who have gone bad. But when you see somebody who's kind of young and impressionable getting excited and wanting to watch more movies by a particular director and sharing that enthusiasm with a friend as they leave the theater, that is the essence of movie going. And as I walked into the theater, I was dreading the experience because it was packed, which is a good thing when ticket sales are so bad. But at the time I was like, oh no, like everybody's going to annoy the shit out of me. And they were all on their phones. One person actually was waving their phone with the flashlight on, trying to signal to a friend where they were seated. And I was like, I hope you die screaming. But if we want the movie business to recover and if we want the art form to continue, people do need to go to the theater in droves, and they need to have a good experience when they do. So I'm thrilled that everybody in that theater seemed to be having a great time tonight, because it's one of those movies where you'll find yourself chuckling with glee at kind of the devilish cleverness of the movie, or the devilish intelligence and all the plotting and scheming and double crosses, where even if they're not saying something that's funny, you'll just laugh from the joy of the experience. And if Amazon's taken notes, this is not a movie that's in the style or tone of the Ian Fleming James Bond novels, nor is it a movie in the style or tone in the James Bond movies. But if this had been a James Bond movie, and there are two James Bond veterans in this movie, but if it had been a James Bond movie, it would be considered the best James Bond movie in 50 years. Like a bold new direction for the franchise. It is a British spy thriller that is sexy, that is smart, that is lethal, it is wildly enjoyable. Beautifully short, only 92 minutes, and it just shows how these two seasoned old salty dogs, Steven Soderbergh and David Koepp, who are getting up there in years, they still have a fastball. And this is the second movie they've released in 2025. Like, meanwhile, you see directors in their 20s and 30s like, not knowing what to do with their careers. These guys are old as dirt. And they've given us one pretty cool low-budget horror movie, and now a really cool spy thriller all in the same year. So high five to this duo, and I hope they continue to make movies together for a very long time. But let me slow down and offer all the vital stats for Black Bag for those people who have not yet seen the trailer. But this movie opens tomorrow. But Black Bag is a 2025 American spy thriller film directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Koepp. The film stars Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, Marissa Abella, Tom Burke, Naomi Harris, Reg-Jean Page, I think I'm saying his name correctly, and Pierce Brosnan. And here's the synopsis. When his wife, intelligence agent Catherine, is suspected of committing treason, her husband, intelligence agent George Woodhouse, is assigned to investigate her. He faces the ultimate test: faithfulness to his marriage or loyalty to his country. And while that synopsis kind of scratches the surface, it doesn't really capture like what makes this movie so entertaining, because Michael Fassbender, as you see in the trailer, he has information that there is one possible traitor within their organization, and he has a list of 5 possible candidates, one of whom is his wife, a wife to whom he is very devoted. She's more of a field agent, and he's more of like an interrogator, or kind of like a truth sayer.
Is it true no one can lie to you?
I don't like liars.
They're both very skilled, very intelligent, very secretive, but also very devoted to each other. And so basically he puts a plan into motion to try to figure out like who is the traitor. And everybody is kind of plotting and scheming against each other and doing double takes and smoke screens and all this stuff. But Michael Fassbender, this is one of his best roles where what he really excels at is just staring at people very intensely and saying nothing as he almost kind of wills them into divulging information. And I think of all the actors alive right now, he might be the best at these kind of dining room sequences, because the movie starts with this incredibly elaborate dinner scene, which is like the real high watermark of the movie. But what it reminded me of is the cafe scene from Inglourious Bastards, where no matter what you might think of Inglourious Bastards, most people tend to agree that's the best scene of the movie, and Michael Fassbender is a key part of that. He really seems to shine during these scenes, but this early scene in the movie, the first scene of the movie, was so good. I was like, all right, well, there's no way the movie is going to be able to sustain this level of entertainment value for the rest. And it dips and bobs and weaves and goes up and down, but luckily, there are 2 or 3 more scenes that follow. We're like, oh my God, like, yeah, David Koepp and Steven Soderbergh know exactly what they're doing. And the structure is very satisfying. And like I said before, 92 minutes or 94 minutes, you're in, you're out. And they only made the movie for $50 million. And I'm about to break my own rule about not overpraising the movie. But if you're a movie lover and you watch a shitload of movies, like, you know, if you're like diehard film freaks, usually watch a movie a day, whether that's at home on Blu-ray or in the theater or whatever. And sometimes you go to the theater multiple times a week. And if you go to the theater multiple times a week, I mean, if we're being charitable, they're between like 5 and 10 pretty good movies every year. So if you're going to the movies all the time, most of the movies you see are going to be pretty disappointing. And you're like, why do I keep doing this to myself? But then when you see a good one, it's like you're like it's like being like a withered up plant in the desert that's finally getting some water, and you're like, this is why we go to the movies. And just by virtue of this, you know, this desert of cinema culture right now, Black Bag might end up being perhaps like one of the strongest movies of the year, perhaps my favorite movie of the year. It's, right now, I have not seen in the last 10 weeks any other movie that comes close. Like, I liked Presence, but not as much as Black Bag, and I liked The Monkey. But Black Bag, I had no complaints, like none. Like, there wasn't a single performance or a crap bit or a crap ingredient. Like, newsflash, if you have a good script and you have good actors and you have good cinematography, in this case cinematography by Steven Soderbergh, and you have excellent music, in this case by David Holmes, who's worked with Steven Soderbergh for decades. But like, if all those ingredients are good, the movie will be good. It's not that mysterious. But so often we see movies where there's just like nothing is cohesive, nothing comes together. Like, it's been rushed into production without a screenplay, or it's been rushed into production with the wrong cast. Like, just everything that can go wrong does go wrong. But with Black Bag, it's just one of those movies where in my mind, I was doing little cartwheels because it was stimulating my imagination, it was stimulating my intellect, it was stimulating my erogenous zones. It's a very erogenous, kind of erotic, sexy movie with a lot of frank conversations about some people's kinks and things that they're into and that sort of thing. But it's also just refreshing to see a movie about smart, cunning adults who have excellent taste in wine or whiskey or whatever, who are also really good at killing people or spying on people. And so once again, it's just a blast to watch. I'm definitely going to see it again, and I'll probably end up buying the Blu-ray. And if you look at the careers of David Koepp and Steven Soderbergh, I mean, David Koepp has written tons of horrible, horrible movies. Like, he's one of those guys where no matter what the franchise is, whether it's got superheroes or dinosaurs or whatever, David Koepp has been brought in to write a lot of those movies, and not all of them are good. But he's also written movies like Carlito's Way, and it's like, oh yeah, like David Koepp, like, you're that guy. He was adapting a book, but he still fucking wrote Carlito's Way. And when you look at Steven Soderbergh, he's basically made every kind of movie under the sun, but one particular genre is his sweet spot. That would be crime films, because Out of Sight was a goddamn good adaptation of the Elmore Leonard novel. The Limey, I think, is his best movie. And now if you add in Black Bag, which is probably not on the level of those two, because just late 90s was a very special time for a lot of filmmakers, especially Steven Soderbergh. But we now have this cool crime trilogy where each movie is different in style and tone. And I like how The Limey, while it's an American set movie, it does have The Limey at the core of it. But this is absolutely a Western European British spy thriller. I mean, Steven Soderbergh and David Koepp, you would have thought they'd been brought up in London reading nothing but like Jean Le Carré novels their entire childhood. Because at no point did I feel like, oh, these two Americans, they're messing everything up when it comes to British culture. Not that I'm some expert on British culture, but I've seen a ton of British movies. But when you have American actors trying to do a British accent or an English accent or Scottish or Irish or Welsh or whatever, the results usually are disastrous. And the same can hold true for writers and directors, where they just can't quite capture the Englishness that we so desperately crave, especially if you enjoy a good old-fashioned British spy thriller. But maybe I shouldn't call this old-fashioned. It's old-fashioned because it's good, but it definitely feels modern. It definitely feels like current, up-to-date in terms of the technology and the cast. And I should say the cast is very, very strong. Let's go through the cast real quick. So Michael Fassbender, I've already praised him for just his steely intelligence. He's very cunning and very observant, and has one of the funniest lines of the year. It's not a comedic line the way he says it, but I was screaming with laughter. All I'll say, without giving away any spoilers, is that it involves the word sphincter. It'll be the most quoted line of the year. So brace yourself, because the audience will be laughing so hard you might even miss it. But yeah, it's a great performance. But Cate Blanchett's absolutely phenomenal as well. And what I like about the relationship of these two spies is that it's mutually respectful, mutually suspicious. And it's not one of those movies that we see so often in the modern age where the guy's always kind of like a dumb brute or a toxic male or whatever, and the girl's always putting him down and explaining how he's doing everything wrong. It is a marriage of equals, and that is what makes a sexy thriller all the more sexy. Like when George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez were in Out of Sight together, it wasn't like the other was constantly putting the other down or explaining how they were constantly wrong. It was a true love affair with those sizzling and like brimming over with excitement because they were on equal terms. Same holds true here. Like the writer David Koepp knows what he's doing. But Tom Burke is fantastic in this. He's really fucking funny. Reg Jean Page, I'm secretly becoming, or not secretly because I'm volunteering it here, becoming is it Reg or Reg Jean Page? Anyway, Mr. Page, I first saw him, I think, in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I did not like, but he was incredible. He just floored me. He was the funniest part of the movie by far, as a paladin who takes himself a little bit too seriously. But if you've ever played D&D, we all know people who play a paladin that way. And somehow he just knew in his bones how to play that role, and he just floored me. He's equally good here in Black Bag. And what's great about Reg Jean Page's character, as well as the character played by Tom Burke, is that they are unapologetically masculine in this movie. We've been suffering from a lack of masculinity in a lot of action movies as of late. These guys they're a little bit on the dirtbag side. Like, they have a lust for women, big time. They love strong drink. They are not afraid of violence. They are cunning, they're resourceful, they're incredibly ambitious, they're incredibly aggressive. Like, both of them are an absolute joy to watch, and they just hold nothing back. But we also have Naomi Harrison here, Moneypenny herself from, I don't know how many Bond movies. She was at least Moneypenny in 3, I think. Was she in 3? But she was also obviously in 28 Days Later, but I like Naomi Harris quite a bit. She's fantastic in this movie. And then we have Jimmy Bond himself, Pierce Brosnan. I don't know if there's anybody out there who thinks Pierce Brosnan is the best Bond, unless you are of a certain age where you were like 8 or 9 when GoldenEye came out. Then perhaps you might look upon Pierce Brosnan in a very favorable light. But I love Pierce Brosnan as an actor. He's an amazing performer, an incredible character actor, and he brings some great old school gravitas to the proceedings. And because we've been suffering from a lack of good James Bond movies, this movie is kind of almost James Bond adjacent, where it's a British spy thriller and a lot of characters from Bond movies are in it. It just doesn't happen to have like the score and the Aston Martin and the Walther PPK and all that kind of stuff. But it has all the other things that you want and crave from a great British spy thriller.
When you can lie about everything, when you can deny everything, how do you tell the truth about anything?
But the real secret weapon of this movie is Marissa Abela, who is just a scene stealer if there ever was one. She's cute as hell, but it's just, without giving anything away, she's got a dark side that she's not super apologetic about as well. And she just had me howling with glee, not howling because she was saying or doing anything funny. She had me howling just with the pleasure of a good actress coupled with great material, just really hitting home runs with every single line. So in a weird way, this movie almost reminds me a bit of Clue. And Clue obviously is a comedy, very different in style and tone, but you have a really great cast of characters, all of whom are fantastic in their own right, any one of whom might be the killer, or in the case of Black Bag, any one of whom might be the traitor. And they're all trying to figure it out at the same time. And I didn't really, either I wasn't paying attention closely enough, or I didn't really see it coming until it was right on top of me at the very end. But I look forward to my second time through, where I can kind of look for all the clues and details that might have been possible giveaways. I don't know to what degree this movie kind of lays a trail of breadcrumbs or just surprises the audience, but I was just so swept away by the enjoyment of the experience. Maybe I wasn't paying attention with like my magnifying glass the way that I should have been. And so I don't know if I have that much more to add without going into spoilers or greater detail, but I feel like if you're looking for answers or solutions that will help the movie business, this is an excellent example where they kept the costs under control. Like I said, a budget of $50 million, Focus Features picked it up for $60 million after the fact. I assume that producer Casey Silver scraped together the money to make this movie. Casey Silver used to run Universal Pictures for a while. Very experienced producer, real industry pro, real industry veteran. He knows exactly what the fuck he's doing, and he's been around for a very long time. But I feel like if independent producers can go out there and make smart, sexy entertainment, and entertainment that doesn't look down upon the audience or doesn't assume they have bad taste or doesn't assume that they're stupid. Like when you read a lot of comments these days by someone like Joe or Anthony Russo, and they're talking about how, like modern audiences can only think about things in terms of like clips for social media. They don't have the attention span for stories anymore. I'm like, this is why your movies have become terrible. It's because you are making up your mind that the audience only wants the dumbest possible movie that's been broken up into a million little pieces by AI, as opposed to a story with structure, with dazzling performances and a rewarding payoff where if you've been paying attention, at the end it's just so satisfying as the whole story comes together, where the beginning, middle, and end, they all work together for a cohesive whole. And if Hollywood could find a way to make 10 to 20 of these movies every year, like I said, smart entertainment that will get adults off of their sofa back into the theater. Or in the case of those two knuckleheads that were coming down the escalator behind me, like, bro, I'm going to see more movies by Soderbergh. I'm like, excellent. That's a fantastic. I like the idea of all the above. Start with Sex, Lies, and Videotape and work your way forward. I'm not going to claim that Steven Soderbergh has been batting 1,000 his entire career, but movies like Traffic and Aaron Brockovich and Sex, Lies, and Videotape and Out of Sight and The Limey, what's some of his more recent stuff like, what was it, Beyond or Behind the Candelabra? What the hell is that movie called? I'm totally blanking on the name of the movie. Behind the Candelabra. Or fucking Presence, which came out only like 2 months ago. The guy knows what he's doing. What else has he made? I liked High Flying Bird, but it's just a very talky drama about basketball. If you like basketball, you'll like that. Logan Lucky is very funny. The Knick is a very cool TV show. Haywire, cool action movie. Contagion, people went crazy for that during COVID. I know a lot of people out there really like Che. I saw Che Part 1 and Che Part 2. It's like 9 hours of Che Guevara. I was like, ooh, it's a lot of Che Guevara. But if you're into Che Guevara, check it out. The Girlfriend Experience has some very erotic stuff with Sasha Grey. Kind of boring, but if you're into naked people, then that's worth a look as well. So, yeah, Steven Soderbergh has had a remarkably varied career where he's tackled every conceivable genre, sometimes even starring himself, as was the case in Schizopolis. And I'm just thrilled that somebody who's always threatening retirement keeps coming up with reasons to come out of retirement and appear to be more productive than ever before, because Traffic and Aaron Brockovich came out in the same year. And 25 years ago, he was nominated for Best Picture and Best Director for both movies in the same year. I don't know if the same will happen with Presence and Black Bag, but at least he got on base 2 times in the same year, which is more than a lot of his peers can say. I think of all the directors that are his age in their 60s, he's easily the most prolific director alive today. Also, as long as I'm praising Soderbergh, I should also say that he's really good at doing commentary tracks for movies. Here is Point Blank from director John Boorman, where on the Blu-ray, there's a commentary track where Soderbergh and Boorman sit down and just talk about the movie. But what's great is how Soderbergh is a very accomplished filmmaker, but when he's seated next to John Boorman, you can tell he still looks up to John Boorman. I mean, he made Point Blank, he made Deliverance, he made Excalibur, he made Zardoz. I mean, he made a lot of different kinds of movies. But it's cool seeing Soderbergh in the role of like student or, it's like almost looking up to a mentor in a lot of ways. But you can tell from the way he talks about Point Blank that he spent a lot of time watching the really good action movies and thrillers of the 1960s, which is probably why he did such a good job with Black Bag. I don't know which British spy thrillers he loves, but I would assume he's got a long list from the 60s and 70s where he's like, I want to see more movies like Get Carter or whatever the case might be. I mean, Get Carter's not really a spy thriller. It's like a gangster thriller. But in any case, if you like watching smart, brutal motherfuckers with sophisticated accents beating the crap out of people, Britain cranked out a lot of those movies in the 1960s and the 1970s. So there it is, a review with nothing but praise For those of you out there who prefer it, when I talk about giant pieces of shit like The Electric State by the Russos, which is coming out this weekend, like, never fear. I'm sure there'll be additional turkeys right around the corner that'll prompt, my rage and my spite and my hate in the not so distant future. The chances are always more likely that I'm going to have a temper tantrum as opposed to offering effusive praise for a movie. But if you find my videos where I'm just praising a movie to be kind of boring in comparison, once again, just be patient. And I'm sure there'll be a show or movie that comes along in the very near future where I'm like, all right, let's talk some shit. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting the notification bell. But I hope everybody has a great weekend at the movies, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.